Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the count is still underway, but the ANC is set to stay in power in South Africa. But years of corruption and a shaky economy looks like it has cost it votes in the national election. Also, demonstrators remain on their months-long sit-in outside of army headquarters in Khartoum, demanding that the Sudanese military cede authority to a civilian-dominated council. We hear from our correspondent on the ground. And escalating fighting around Tripoli in Libya has seen an uptick in refugees and the displaced. Neighbouring Tunisia is struggling to cope with the pressure the increased number of refugees is putting on services. But first, with results from about two-thirds of voting districts in, the ruling ANC party is, as predicted, set to retain power in South Africa. However, the former Liberation Party has put in its worst showing since it took over in 1994 at the end of white-only rule. The African National Congress is on course for a vote share of between 55 and 59%. Turnout has been the lowest since any parliamentary election in the last 25 years, with many black voters shunning the polls. Faith in the party has been rocked by corruption, a shaky economy, and entrenched racial inequality. The elections are a litmus test of the inroads President Cyril Ramaphosa may have made into rolling back the mistrust fostered under his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. Aisha Ishmael tells us more.
With just over 60% of the votes being counted, the ANC is still leading with just under 57%. The Democratic Alliance scored under 23%, and the Economic Freedom Fighters is standing on 9.87%. Now, we were expecting more results, but we've just heard that 17 parties are threatening to interdict the Independent Electoral Commission from releasing the election results following allegations of irregularities during the voting process. The smaller parties are complaining about the indelible ink that was easily removed straight after voting, allowing people to go to vote for a second time. They also complaining about the shortage of ballot papers at some voting stations. Now, the IEC's Courtney Sampson says they're taking the complaints and the allegations very seriously. Already 20 people have been arrested for committing fraud during the election process, during the voting process. He's also saying that the IEC will conduct an urgent audit because he says it's important to protect the integrity of the voting process, because when they release these results, they want to release it with confidence.
Well, South Sudan's president has said that the formation of a unity government with rebel leaders should be put back by at least a year. The country's been racked by a brutal civil war since 2013, after fighting broke out between forces backing President Salva Kiir and then Vice President Riek Machar. A peace deal agreed last September had set May the 12th as the deadline for the beginning of a power-sharing administration. Machar later called for a 6-month postponement. Kiir now says that there's a hold-up over the integration of rival forces and needs another 12 months to get ready for a power-sharing administration. Both sides accuse each other of having already broken the peace deal. Thousands of people are still camped outside of army headquarters in Khartoum as they keep up pressure on the military to hand over to a civilian administration in the wake of the toppling of former President Omar al-Bashir. Protest leaders accuse generals of delaying the transfer of power and have threatened to ramp up their pushback. Nadia Massi is in Khartoum for us.
It's part protest, part party here in Khartoum outside the military headquarters. The sun's gone down, the Ramadan fast has been broken, and this place is throbbing with the energy of thousands of people that want to tell the military generals just over there, it's time for you to cede authority to the demonstrators here in the street. But this sit-in has gone on for a month now, and there seems to be something of a stalemate over those negotiations with the military about what Sudan's future should look like, how much Sharia law should be incorporated into the next administration, and when should those elections actually be held. And despite all the celebrations here tonight, there's a warning from the street too. Acquiesce to our demands, or we will start a campaign of civil disobedience from next week.
Nadia Massi there for us. Look now to News in Brief. Tanzanian opposition activist Mdude Nyagali has been found 5 days after he was abducted. He was reportedly found in a village in the southern highlands and had been badly beaten. He's an active critic of the government of President John Magufuli. Police have dismissed accusations from opposition leaders that authorities may have been involved in his disappearance. Togolese MPs have approved a constitutional amendment that would allow President Faure Gnassingbe to remain in power until 2030. The change caps presidential terms to just 2, but doesn't apply retroactively, so Gnassingbe will be able to run for 2 more 5-year mandates. His family's run the country since 1967. He succeeded his father in 2005. And textile factory workers in Ethiopia are on average the lowest paid in the world. A new report by the New York University Stern Center for Business and Human Rights says that garment factory workers in Ethiopia have a base wage of around $26 a month. Their Chinese counterparts earn around $340. Those in Kenya earn about $207. Ethiopia is one of Africa's fastest growing economies and has been actively pursuing global clothing manufacturers to set up shop in the country. Well, escalating battling in Libya, around Tripoli is having a knock-on effect in neighboring Tunisia. Since 2011, Tunisia has been trying to position itself as a mediator between different Libyan political forces and has taken in many refugees and displaced Libyans. But that is coming at an increasing cost, as our correspondents report.
Libyans regularly seek out private medical care in Tunisia. Clinics there are often better equipped than those back home. Recently, Tunisian medical centers have seen a spike in the number of combat-injured Libyans seeking treatment. More than 40 people have come to this clinic over the last fortnight.
The patients are victims of war. They were hit with shrapnel from firearms. We normally admit them after having their condition stabilized in Libya. It's young people who are fighting. They don't have experience, so we see cases with wounds, really very serious ones.
The latest flare-up of violence has led to a month-long battle for Libya's capital. Many of those hospitalized have been fighting on the side of the government of national accord against General Haftar's assault on Tripoli. But civilians are also paying a heavy price. Zahra usually lives in Tripoli. She was wounded by shrapnel from a mortar shell explosion.
I began to run. This whole part of my body was covered in blood, and my head, and my stomach was hurting, but I didn't know why. I was running and shouting, "Help me!" I'm really scared about what's happening in Tripoli now. I don't want to go back. I want to stay in Tunis.
Libyan rights activists also head to Tunisia seeking refuge. Ahmed fled the eastern Libyan city of Benghazi after he was threatened for speaking out on Facebook about human rights abuses.
All the activists who try to speak out about abuses and censorship are put in prison, kidnapped or exiled from the country. That's what's happened in the last few days.
But not everyone facing danger in Libya can make it over the border to Tunisia. Most have no choice but to stay and face potentially deadly violence. At least 432 people have been killed and about 50,000 displaced in recent weeks. A military escalation that also has serious consequences for Libya's neighbors.
Well, in Ghana, one young entrepreneur who was tired of waiting for hours at his local barbershop decided to cut down on the time himself by setting up a booking service where the hairdresser comes to you wherever you are. He seems to have been met with some success, as Nicolas Chemin tells us.
A special kind of delivery in Ghana's capital. These men have set up a temporary barbershop in a customer's home. He had booked the appointment online.
I do this every Saturday, and the reason why I switched to them was that initially it was a lot of stress, waking up on Saturday mornings tired and then finding my way to one of the barbering salons around and then staying in queue for almost an hour or two sometimes just to have my hair done.
Emmanuel Kojo Ankoma founded the company 2 years ago after he was tired of waiting for hours in his barbershop.
We decided to create a platform where busy people who really don't have a lot of time on their hands, can sit in the comfort of their homes, the comfort of their offices, or any other location they prefer and have a haircut right at their doorstep.
A haircut costs $6 and more if the customer lives far from the city centre.
I chose Save Masters because time is of the essence. I'm a very busy person with a very, very tight work schedule. And I do not like to spend several hours in the barbering salon waiting for my turn.
The company now employs 3 barbers and 1 marketing officer. Its founder hopes to develop his business in other African nations in the coming years.
This could change lives. That is, though, what we're going to have to leave it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.